it yourselves, how do you guys feel about you being part of the Google Classroom right now? Like, is it easy to navigate for you? Are you having some difficulties? How are you guys feeling about that?
As a student in the Google Classroom, I think I'm comfortable with that.
Okay.
Yeah. Same.
Okay, awesome. All right, so we could just do some quick logistics about our Google Classroom, and then we can talk about how you guys can create your own Google Classroom. So I'm going to share my screen. This is what our Google Classroom looks like, the Session B teachers that you guys are all a part of. It works the same way when you create your own Google Classroom. So you would have the stream. It would just be completely empty. So it could be a little bit intimidating working with a blank slate. So I just wanted to, hi.
Hi, Quinta.
Oh.
Hi, Quinta. We just started.
Okay.
And we were asking if you were interested in creating your own Google Classroom or if you wanted more of an informational session on how to use it as a student.
For me, it's both.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Alrighty, I'm gonna open my chat just in case. You guys can drop your questions in the chat if you want to. It's also a really small group, so you could just turn on your mic at any time and say whatever. So this is what our Google Classroom looks like. As you can see, this is all of the materials that we have listed already. Whatever appeals to you, you can click around. You should have access to everything. And hi.
Doris, you're never going to get past the first.
Yeah, I know. Hi.
Hi, Bonnie.
I'm curious, if I put something in the chat and somebody joins after I put it in, they can't see it, right?
No, unfortunately not.
Alrighty, that's fine. Okay, well, I guess the only two really important things that you in this room right now need to worry about is, of course, outline the mandatory safety training workshop, just making sure that you have those two things turned in. Do you have any questions about the logistics of how to turn these assignments in on Google Classroom, or are you guys all clear?
I'm good.
Any questions about these two from anybody else? We're good. Alrighty. So it seems to me like most of you guys have a hang of this stuff. I feel like it's mostly just how you guys can create your own Google Classrooms, which we are so excited that you are doing, because this is also something new that we have created with the teachers. So seeing that the teachers are comfortable or even interested in creating them for the students, that's showing us that you guys are also taking initiative, and we're very, very grateful for that. So these are the basics of Google Classroom. Has anybody here ever used it before as a teacher? No, okay. All right, so we're going to take a look at some of the stuff for the Google Classroom, the basics. So you can use your Google Classroom on the website, on the computer. So you just go to Google Classroom, classroom.google.com, or like if you just open Google, then it's all connected, so you can just find it. It looks like this chalkboard app looking thing. That's what the Google Classroom will look like. And then you can also download it on your iPad, on the phone. A lot of my students use their iPads or tablets to do it, and it gets kind of confusing just because on a computer you can navigate between websites and Zoom and stuff like that, but on the iPad or whatever, it could be a little bit confusing. So I highly suggest, if you guys are going to be using Google Classroom, to do like a quick poll of what devices your students are using so that you can best accommodate for them. Because if the majority of them are using an iPad, then you also want to know what Google Classroom looks like on an iPad or on a phone or on a computer, and that way it's easier for them to understand what you're doing or when you're uploading things or how they're supposed to be uploading things and stuff like that. So creating a Google Classroom is easy. All you need is a personal Gmail account. So please make sure, I don't know what emails you're using, but I know for the, when we ask for you to join our Google Classroom, we ask that you use a personal Gmail. So you're going to have to do the same when you're creating your own Google Classroom. And also, just like we asked you to register with the personal Gmail, your students need to also register with a personal Gmail. And I don't know how the DOE emails are working out right now. I don't know if students still have access to them, but they need to make sure that if they're joining your Google Classroom, that they have their own personal Gmail or a parent's personal Gmail, anything like that. It just can't be any other domain that's connected. It needs to be that @gmail.com. Does everybody understand what I mean by a personal Gmail? We're good?
Just to clarify, so if your students are like very, very young, like in the 5 to 8 range group, they might not have their own emails. They might only have like their school email, and that would not work. So either they there's like an alternative to the Google Classroom, or you just have them use like their parents' personal Gmails to
Yeah.
join.
Yeah. And there is a loophole, like, I don't like to say this, but the way that we did it with my kids is we just had them all create their own Gmails. I work with 8-year-olds, and there's just a part where when you create a Gmail, you have to check off that you're 13-year-old or 18-year-old or whatever. And we just told them to do it for the purposes of our thing. Obviously, we don't want to encourage that type of behavior, but if nothing else, that is an option. But again, we don't want to encourage that. But yes, you do need a personal Gmail. Otherwise, they're either going to have issues getting in, or they won't be able to access whatever is happening. There's going to be a lot of technical issues on the back end. So yes, please make sure that you are creating one with a personal Gmail and that they are signing up with a personal Gmail. So there are 2 ways that they can register. You can send them an invite manually. So let me go into the one that we have. So if you go to the top where it says people, next to students, you can just add and then just type in whatever their email is, and then it'll auto send an email invite. They just click on it and they're in. If they didn't receive that, because sometimes there are glitches, then you can just go to your stream page and you see this like mix of things and this box that says display. You could just send them the class code and then they can join that way. And joining is also super, super easy. You literally just go to classroom.google.com, and then on the top right, there should be a plus sign. And then they can just click join class and then type in whatever class code it is that you created. This cannot be personalized or customized or anything like that. So you just get whatever random assortment of letters or numbers that you get on Google Classroom. Any questions about how to invite students or how to get students to be part of the classroom?
Can I add something really quickly, Doris?
Hmm?
So I have a feeling that the reason why like Doris encouraged her students to, join Google Classroom, even though it's quote technically like, they're under 13, is because Google Classroom is really useful because it streamlines all the Google apps. So for example, like it's really easy to make like a Google Meets link based on everybody in your Google Classroom, and they'd be able to access that link very, very easily for like, the live classes, like Google Docs, Google Spreadsheets, Google Slides, like Google Form. Everything can be like what's the word, integrated into your classroom very, very easily.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why.
And when you create your Google Classroom, on your drive, you will automatically get a Google Classroom folder created. So whatever you put into the Google Classroom will be auto-saved into that specific folder. So it's really, really cool that Google Classroom is able to connect all of these apps together. It makes everything easier because everything is in one place for the students, for you. Whenever I have a kid who's like, they deleted something by accident, they don't know how to get it back because they're 8, so then I could just find it really quickly on my drive and fix it. Like everything is just a lot simpler. So these are the tabs. They're very self-explanatory. The stream is like your homepage, your news feed. You can post whatever you want on the stream. You can also select who you want to post it to. So let's say you have like 10 students, but like 3 students didn't do something, or you want to only speak to 3 students, then you can select who those students are and then they will see it. You can add attachments. I really feel like I could do all the explaining in the world, but the easiest thing for you to do is just create a Google Classroom and test it out yourself. If you have multiple emails, that's literally what I do. I just have like myself in all of my own classrooms just so that I can test things out. Yeah, I think you just learn by doing. I think that's the biggest thing here. Creating a classwork and stuff like that is also, I feel like if you know how to utilize Drive and Docs and Forms or Sheets, if you need to even go that far, then you should be able to connect everything into your Google Classroom. What I also like about Google Classroom is that there are different types of things that you can upload. So what we have listed on the ones that you guys are students in, we have material. So it's just like stuff that you can open and look at. And then we have assignments, which is stuff that needs to be turned in. So depending on what type of, what functionality you want your classroom to have, do you want it to just be a place for students to find resources? Do you want it to be a place for your students to turn in like homework assignments or classwork assignments? All of those things could be done. we're mainly using this as a platform for resources and like important things like the safety training or like course outlines. But for the most part, it's going to be for resources. So we're going to be posting a lot of material. But you can also post questions that they just post their answers to. You can post assignments, topics just so that it's organized. And then the other cool thing is when you post something, you can also schedule it. Or you could put a due date. That's cool too. But then you can also schedule it to be due whenever. So I typically, when I'm using it with my kids, I do all of my planning the Friday before the week begins, the next week begins. So then on Friday, I'll just show you my classroom. On Friday, I'll have everything put in already so that I schedule it to go out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then the rest of the week I don't forget to do anything because I've already done it the week before. So it's really helpful for those kinds of things where I need certain things to go out at a certain time, but maybe I won't be available at that time. Then it's easy for me to have these things scheduled. And it's really, really particular, like down to the minute you can put the schedule in. Which is also really cool because then if I forget to do something, then the Google Classroom will already do it for me. There's a lot of information happening right now. Are there any questions, any specific questions that you guys had even coming in? Hi, Carlene. I know you joined like mid me talking.
I have a question.
Yeah.
If the kids create something like within a Google Doc in Google Classrooms after is there a way for it to then get transferred to their own personal drive, like once the class ends or something like that?
Yeah, of course. Do you mean like, I don't know what grade you're working with, but what I do with my kids is, so then I'll have that thing that I upload, right? Like I'll have this and then it's a template. So Google Drive or Google Classroom will generate a copy for every single student. So what happens is I have my main document, but when they do things, they don't write directly into my document because Google has generated their own copy. So they get mine, but then it's like it's a second copy for all of them. So they could write directly into it. And then when they submit it, obviously, since it's a Google Doc, it's already saved onto their drive. And then I'll have a copy because I'm shared onto it and all that kind of stuff. And they don't need to manually upload anything. What age group are you working with?
9 and 10-year-olds. And they've been pretty good so far about like sharing Google Docs with me. Like I haven't had a Google Classroom this time, but I can imagine this will be easier and just want to make sure they get to keep their work when it's over.
For sure, yeah. So the other issue that we ran, it wasn't really an issue, but the only thing is when they do submit something, you need to make sure that you return it to them because then they'll lose their owner privileges. So everybody will have it shared, like you can all edit, you can all comment and stuff like that, but the owner privileges will change. So let's say they turn something into you and then you review it or whatever, it's depending on who has the document at that moment, that person will be the owner. So when they turn it in to you, you become the owner, and then when you return it to them, they become the owner, and then if they keep resubmitting it, then the owner will change, but all of the sharing privileges will stay the same, and everyone will be able to access it at every time.
Okay, thank you.
Just an extension of Leah's question. So what if the student themselves create a Google Doc in their own drive and then they share it like onto the stream, like they share it with the rest of the class on Google Classroom? So they will always be the owner, right? And then everybody can see their document once they share it?
On the stream?
Yes.
I believe it's everybody, yes. So I don't know if, I had a student who uploaded something. I don't know if she uploaded it through Google Drive, but I think when you upload something, even if it's like through like your photos, let's say you want to put up a photo and you upload it onto the Google Classroom, I'm pretty sure that the photo will auto save into Google Drive.
Okay.
Because you're putting it onto a Google platform, so it'll all just be connected into one thing.
Okay. And then they will still have it in their own drive too because it's theirs. Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks.
Any other questions about work, submitting? Is there anything else? Yeah, I think once you guys get a little bit more practice and you like really just, I highly suggest that you make your own Google Classroom, and if you have a second, I have like 5 Gmails, which is why I do this. I just add my Gmails onto everything, and I test things out, and that's really the best way to learn. That's how I learned when we went remote. I just did everything. I clicked around, made some mistakes, but it was all good. So I think I recommend it. And, we're always here if anything comes up that you're not thinking of right now, because things always happen like in the moment, which is totally okay. And if anything comes up in the moment and you're just like, oh my goodness, I don't know what to do, you can always just reach out on this school classroom, because maybe there's somebody else, another teacher who's had that experience or has those answers that we may not. Anything else? Let me stop this.
So just like, what are the different types of things you can upload into a Google Classroom? Um, so I know that you can create an assignment with a due date, which is what you showed us. And then you can attach a file to your assignment that you're assigning to the students. So for example, you attach, I don't know, like a Google Doc with like questions on it. And then students would get that doc, and then when they edit it, that's their own copy of the doc. But then they can submit it, and then you look over it, and then you return it to them, and that doc is again theirs, right? So you can do that. You can also share like announcements onto the stream, right? And that can just be like anything, right? It could be like a photo or just like a text or I don't know, form, a slideshow, anything, all those like Google apps. What other, I guess like my question is, what other purposes can Google Classroom serve other than like uploading announcements and assignments? Like, what have you like used it for? Like, is it like a discussion space, or, things like
Yeah, for sure. I think definitely we've used it. It's a little bit hard just because we try to keep it as or strictly academic as possible because of the functions that I specifically have for it. So once I started to figure out that, because I'm a math teacher, so once I started figuring out that my kids, they're very lonely at home, they can't really go out and play with their friends and stuff. So they started using the classroom as a discussion space. And because we wanted to keep the things separate, I ended up just creating a separate classroom just for them to post like fun stuff or for us to post activities. So it doesn't need to be strictly your subject. If you want it, so it's really however you want to create that space, whatever you want to provide to your students, it could be whatever space you would like. There are also ways, I haven't had to use it yet, but there are ways to mute students. So if there's a student who is just like, creating havoc or, some kind of issue, I highly doubt that you'll have that issue. But in the case that you do have that issue, there is a possibility for you to mute the students. You can private message the students. You can give them grades, which is also really cool. Even if, I always thought that grades didn't really, as the kids get older, grades start to matter less, but like something so simple like giving somebody 100. That's what I was thinking about when you guys did your safety workshops. Should we like give you guys hundreds? Is that something like is that something that will give you guys a little bit of joy? It's so silly, but it's like the little things that even if you just want something to like keep a record of the work that you guys are doing, because they'll always have access to the classroom. You'll always have access to the classroom, even after summer camp. So even if you just want everything to be centralized in one place so that like in a couple years, if you decide to become a teacher and you want to look back at that kind of stuff, then it's really cool. Google is just such a crazy space in general. Like it's just so much happening on Google.
Yeah, that's really helpful. So there could be a social aspect if you, I guess,
For
if you
sure.
encourage it, right? Okay,
Yeah.
great. Great. Does anybody else have any other questions? Let's see.
Is there anything that you want to ask that's specific to your classroom, or it doesn't even need to be about Google Classroom, honestly? Any questions that you have in general that you had, or any goals you had coming into the meeting, or was it just want to know what's up kind of thing?
One of the things, sorry,
No, you go first. You go.
one of the things, I think you've already answered this, but so Google Classroom doesn't have its own video chat platform. It's like you can integrate it with Google Meets if you want, or I could post my Zoom link. Okay.
Yes, that's correct. Yep. It does not have like a Google Classroom Meet or whatever. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So my question is, let me just show you what I'm seeing. So this is the summer camp classroom. And so this is like the classwork tab. And I'm guessing like, all the resources are organized by topic on the left. And then like the teachers posted everything. And I see there's the class drive folder. I'm guessing that's the drive where all the things go into for like one space, right? One folder. And then next to it is Google Calendar. Have you used that, Doris, to do anything?
No, I generally don't use Google Calendar in general, but I think that it's connected to my thing anyway, because I was on Google Calendar earlier today and it said that I like had assignment due from my other, my fake class. So it does connect to Google Calendar if that's something that you regularly use. But for me, it doesn't matter. I don't use Google Calendar in general, so it was never really important to me. But yes, definitely, if it's something that you use and you like frequently, then yes, it is something that you can connect all of your assignments to Google Calendar.
Oh, so all the assignments and the deadlines would show up in my
Exactly.
calendar. Oh, okay. Wow, that's really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments, fears, frustrations? And we do apologize. We've been posting a lot of stuff. So if your notifications are on, your phone may have been going off. And we don't want that to be like a turn off for you. Like, I'm going to turn off my notifications because this is too much. It's just because we're preparing for the summer camp. So there's a lot of resources that we want to provide, especially because we want to make sure that you have some type of a lesson outline. You have everything that you need in order to, start off really fresh. So that's the only reason why we've been bombarding like you with the notifications and stuff, but just ignore them for now. And then when we start summer camp next week, whatever announcements that we post will become more important.
So a few things. Sorry, I keep talking. So about the notifications, Doris is the one who told me you can actually turn them off, or rather turn the email notifications off, right?
Yes.
But the only thing is that if you turn it off, then like every single thing turns off. Like you just don't
Yes.
get any notifications whatsoever, right?
Yeah.
But then I've noticed, so I actually like using Google Classroom on my phone because the notifications just come up as like a phone notification. It's easier for me to check that somehow. So maybe that's like an option for you guys to use ours, but also like, for your students. And I had a question. Oh, shoot. I can't remember. Forget. Yeah, I can't remember my question.
But yeah, definitely on the phone. I don't know what it is about a phone notification that looks better than an email. I think because it's on the email, it has like all of these introductory, like this person has posted on their Google Classroom class. Like it's just a lot of extra words. And when you just get the phone notification, it's very straightforward. Like this person posted this and that's it. And I don't know. I'm also the type of person who I don't like to have badges on my phone. So when I have like 31 emails that I've already checked on Google Classroom, but it's also on my email, I have to go through all of them manually. That's annoying. So you can turn off your email notifications and it helps to consolidate everything because for the people who I am a liaison for, I've been sending emails to right now, and I feel like that may be getting confusing because we're using the classroom, but we're also sending emails. So we want to try to streamline everything onto just Google Classroom. And then if you ever get an email from us, then that would mean that it's something that you definitely would need to check because it's more personalized to you.
Yeah. So there's a few of us here. Are any of you like more convinced to use Google Classroom to try it out for your class after Doris's workshop? Or do you guys feel less inclined now to use one? And then I guess like why or why not? Oh, okay, Leah wrote in the chat. I was very inclined.
I'm glad that it helped you see how easy it was, Leah.
Yeah.
I feel like because there's so much going on, it could be very overwhelming at first, but definitely you just click around and then you see that it's very self-explanatory. If it's also your first time using Google Classroom, Google like walks you through it. Every time you click on something new, it'll say, you can also do this, and then you click got it, you know, so it's a very tutorial like if it's your first time using it.
Yeah. This is my first time using it, and I'm not using it as a teacher. I'm just using it for us, and it's been, I feel like, just really, really useful to know. And I know I'm going to use it later on in my teaching career. Um, and if you guys are also planning on using, we would love to get your feedback at the end of session B. So that's why I'm kind of asking, like, are any of you kind of sure that you'll use it or try it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think if you are more also into like an asynchronous type of learning, then Google Classroom is definitely a great platform to use, because I think if I remember correctly, because it's a volunteer organization, not all of the students will be there every single day. And I think part of that just has to do with the time. Maybe the time just doesn't work out for them. And maybe we should be helping them feel a little bit more included. And if that time doesn't work out for them, then they should feel a little bit more open to go into Google Classroom and not feel like they missed out for the day. And it could be hard when you miss a couple days for you to come back and then try to feel like part of the class. It's really hard too. So I definitely hope that for those of you who were inclined to use it, actually do go and use it. 5
That's
to
a really
6 is
good
a
point.
very hard, yeah, it's a hard age.
Yeah, the really young ones. I do know though of like second graders who are about 6 to 7 years old using Google Classroom and knowing how to use it in school. So I think the plus side is that many of your students, if they're from public schools in New York, many of them already know how. But unfortunately, the email thing is a big barrier because they're probably
Yeah.
using their school emails.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yes, but Doris, that was a really good point. Like if attendance is spotty for your class, you don't want to like email out updates every single week to your parents and students. You can just kind of put it on Google Classroom and they can just check it themselves.
Mm-hmm. And there's also an email, you can also email through Google Classroom. So let me show you guys real quick. So what I use this a lot because I don't know all of my students' emails, obviously. So you can just select all, and then you could email, and then it'll open your Gmail. And then it'll blind copy everybody. So everybody doesn't see each other's emails. It's automatically BCC. So it has everybody's emails here, and then you write whatever you want and you send it out. And that way you don't need to manually go into Gmail and type in everyone's emails. So again, another example of how all of Google's apps are integrated into one platform. And it makes everything a lot easier. But yes, you are not, I think because we are learning and you are also learning, hopefully we can all learn together. Whatever you find out, please let us know as well, because we are so open to learning more about this. A lot of the things that I learned about Google Classroom was through my 8-year-old students. They told me like how to that they could unsubmit their work and then resubmit it in order to make changes. I didn't know that,
Yeah.
so you can learn a lot from your 5 or 6-year-olds too. So who knows, maybe they're they're very experienced and they'd be very happy to learn.
Google Classroom experts.
Yeah, and they just love sharing with each other too. So I think on Zoom we had like a bunch of the kids were like doing Zoom backgrounds, and this other kid in my class was like, how do you do Zoom backgrounds? And they were so happy to teach each other how to do things. So don't feel like you need to be like the all-knowing person in the room. Feel free to give that power to these students and empower them to teach you something and teach everybody else something as well.
For sure. So any other questions before we end? And I'm recording, so this will be put up onto our Google Classroom for you to review again, and for people who could not make it to watch.
Mm-hmm. And if anything comes up, please feel free to write us in Google Classroom or email us. We are on our computers all the time, so
all the time.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. We are so happy that you reached out. And if you are interested in any other tech workshops or any other types of informational workshops, please let us know.
Yes, Yeah, we have a Google Meets coming up, and then a Google Meets, a Zoom. Do we have 2 Google Meets coming up, or do we have another Google Classroom coming up?
We have another Google Classroom tomorrow.
Oh, okay. So another Google Classroom, and then a Zoom, and then a Google Meets, all this week. So you guys can check Google Classroom for those times and links.
Thank you guys so much. And if you need anything, reach out to us, reach out to your liaisons, and we will see you soon.
Thank
Good
you,
luck.
Doris.
Of course, anytime. Thank you.
Bye.